And we are live, folks. Thanks for tuning into the smAsho stream. And we are going to cover a whole bunch of stuff, so thanks for tuning in. First, we're going to look at the sun here in 304 angstroms. As there's some filamentary activity, we have cosmic ray flux increased. We're going to cover that and a whole bunch of other stuff. I apologize if the title looks weird on the video. We're going to fix that in a minute, as we've got to get through the stream since all of the data is essentially in real time. Anyway, there's the 304 angstroms view. We have a new coronal hole forming in the southeast. No sunspots, very low solar minimum level activities, 10.7 centimeter radial flux back down to 66. This is about 8 hours of solar activity right here. Sun dominated by coronal holes. And that filament is moving out of the Earth-facing zone. Going to also look at the colorized magnetogram real quick. Really quickly, I should say, as that would be an adverb. All right. We do see a little bit of field formation down here. Otherwise, not a lot going on solar activity-wise. There's a synoptic map. Nothing to write home about there either. Next, we'll move on to the real-time solar wind, which just recently spiked right when I started doing show prep. Actually, I woke up and there was a thunderstorm hitting right at the same time the solar wind popped up, which, yes, that is a coincidence. Solar wind density right now 3.46 protons. Solar wind speed recently popped up to 367 kilometers per second. And I'm not sure if the ACE, oh, there we go. There's the updated ACE information. There you have it. All right, let's move on here. We're going to cover cosmic rays. Don't let other YouTube channels tell you that we're at the modern cosmic ray maximum, as that is not true. We'll show you spots where the cosmic rays have been higher than they are today. Anyway, here's Apatity, and we did indeed see some spikes recently. And there's Barentsburg. Next, we'll look at Athens. Not sure if we can access old data on this one or not. Let me see here. No, we can't access the archive here. I'm not going to try to do it, but we do see big spikes in the past 2 days at the Athens Neutron Monitor. We're going to even talk about where these things possibly are coming from. And the answer is Cygnus. In a moment, we're going to cover some transients. Anyway, there's the cosmic ray situation at Mexico City. And let's go back to 2007, bring up the daily data, and show you how cosmic ray flux was actually higher at the beginning of this graph, which is something like 2009. Notice how we can't read the text because it's, for some reason, it's formatted for months. I have no idea why that is, but you can see they were clearly higher back here than they are in the current scenario. So that's going back to 2007. If you go back all the way, Mexico City's been doing it since 1990. Again, you can see that cosmic ray flux was higher at this spot than it is currently. All right. Also, going to look at Moscow. And we see 2 wild spikes there at Moscow as well. Lastly, we'll look at Oulu, and you can access old data here as well, which we will look at. There's the Oulu Neutron Monitor. Here's DOMC Antarctica. And there's DOMB Antarctica. Looks like a cold winter in Antarctica. If you're located down there and you're watching the video, please leave a comment. All right, so we're going to bring up the data going all the way back. Oh, geez, that's not the right thing. Let me see here. CSV. I'm not sure the format, folks. Oh, wait, hold on. Default generate chart. Once again, you can see at OLU, cosmic ray flux was significantly higher, 2009 to 2010 range. Moving on to transients. Now we're going to look at Sagittarius A star, which is the core of the Milky Way galaxy, if you weren't aware. There are the transients for Sagittarius A star, the ultra-massive object at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. You could call it a radio source. That's the best thing to call it. We've been calling it a radio source since about 1994. Now let's look at the Vela pulsar, which is kind of to the right. Kind of to the right of the galactic center. Cygnus would be like to the left from the perspective of the sun. There's the transients from Vela pulsar. Now let's look at stuff on the other side, on the Cygnus arm, right? Let's look at massive radio galaxy Cygnus A, otherwise known as 3C 405.0. There are the transients from Cygnus A, which is located about 530 million light years away. It's also the second strongest radio source in the sky, second only to the sun. Next, we're going to look at Deneb, otherwise known as Cygnus X3. This Wolf-Rayet binary is also the precessional north pole of our planet at the other end of the precessional cycle, and all summer it just rotates around Polaris, never setting in the northern hemisphere. There are the transients from Cygnus X3, probably the most important star in the sky, also the brightest single object visible with the naked eye, as we look right down that thing's Z field. And I think that's all we need to cover there as far as transients. We'll just cover Cygnus X1 also, which is another massive radio source in the constellation of Cygnus. There are the transients from that. This is the one that Stephen Hawking and Carl Sagan bet on whether or not it's a black hole, famously in the 1970s, I believe. We won't get into black hole conjecture, at least not on today's video. Here are the planet locations. Here's where they'll be in 1 week.
Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you. I got congratulated. Isn't that nice? Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Pardon the thumbnails. There are some bugs in the software. But at least we got the main content back to functioning, despite Google. So, up yours, Google. All right. I apologize for that aside. We're going to skip Stereo A today. We're going to move on to magnetosphere movies so that we can get this stream done and then vacate the tri-state area, really. Now, if anybody thinks we're obfuscating the truth by not showing the velocity videos, think again. The velocity videos are basically the same as the density and pressure. And there's no Dobbs object depicted in the videos, because if they're trying to hide the truth, then why would they include a Dobbs object in the model? Anyway, here's the density. This is the last 4 hours, as we see a varying solar wind density coming in from the left of the screen. Small pulsations in the magnetosphere as a result of that. Looking a little less anomalous from this view than it did yesterday. There were some weird anomalies. So watch yesterday's video if you haven't done so. Here's the pressure, which is quite low. Despite a recent uptick in the solar wind, you should see in the second half an uptick in the pressure. Actually, toward the end, the final third of the video should show a small uptick in pressure. Now wait for it. And there it is. No surprises there. We'll look at ground perturbations. We'll just look at it over the poles this time, as there will not be very many perturbations, I don't believe. And these are the locations where you'll see the aurora if you are in these areas. You got to be pretty close to the poles to see auroras right now, folks, as Birkeland currents pass right through the planet, and their effects pass right through your head. If you're not familiar with Birkeland currents, look up Birkeland currents. They're co-rotating electrical currents that form into spirals and create things like electromagnetism and perpendicular Hall currents and so on, especially when passing through things like the atmosphere. Anyway, here's the locations of stuff in the sky. Here's a location of Deneb, which is probably the most important star, at least in the northern hemisphere. And let's just say it will be mentioned in a scientific paper this year, authored by yours truly. Let's talk about the mission. It's to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects, as many folks out there don't seem to understand that your weather comes from space. Also to connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, hence this channel, and calling national radio shows once or twice a week, and rarely getting through. To demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, like growing tomatoes indoors over the winter. To publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner. To assist the humans, so the humans can get as much gold-pressed latinum as they can. No, to study to advance the study of predictive phenomenon in order to do things like optimize value and reduce risk and liability and save lives and resources and adapt no matter what the adversity is. And lastly, not to be ossified in our beliefs, because if you're a scientist, you can't be ossified in your beliefs or your toast. Evolve or die. Thy power comes from within, viewers. So please access it and treat those who are ossified in their belief with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion, as nobody's going to care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I'm actually not kidding this time. Mi amore, Google. When the lies are revealed and your data gets stealed, that's a Google. When a company's toast and we decide to roast you, a Google. Follow us on Patreon. The only tier is $1 right now. There's going to be another tier, probably $10. So look for that soon and get in at the ground level. You'll still see exclusive stuff. Also, thanks to those folks who have been buying products through the Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign. We really appreciate that. So please click the links below the video to see stuff like our Patreon page and our Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign, specifically formulated for our spaced out viewers. Let's go back to space. Actually, the planetary K index. KP index at 1. We've been seeing a flickering here between a KP1 and 0 as cosmic rays hit the planet. But not very many X-rays. X-ray flux still flatline. Here's the electron flux. We're seeing a dip just caused by that little tiny increase in the solar wind velocity and density. Keep an eye on the rest of the solar wind to forecast what will happen with the electron flux. F2 ionosphere layer is looking very discharged on the daytime and the nighttime side as well. Let's play the animation, as some folks seem to appreciate it. Always a great view of the South Atlantic anomaly. Super weird. Looks like some anomalies there off the eastern coast of South America there too. Very far south, down here toward Antarctica. Right in that region. Some anomalies there. Let's move on to the GOES magnetometer. And we're seeing spikes as forecasted in this as we move into greater field force lines depicted right here. You see this hovering plasma. This is that plasma filament that was suspended between those coronal holes. That's making its way into the setting region of the sun now. And we're getting into more direct field force lines, increasing the earthquake risk, increasing the magnetic connectivity to that incoming coronal hole. So we're going to see ongoing spikes in the magnetometer as a coronal hole wind stream is going to hit sometime between tonight and tomorrow as well. So there's a bunch of activity that's going to pop off despite the solar activity overall being so low. There's some plasma flying around, folks. Again, we apologize for our thumbnails and titles being screwed up. There is a reason for it, and it's got to do with Google's software, one of the worst software manufacturers in the history of mankind. Who remembers back in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s when all software basically worked nearly flawlessly, and now zero software works at an even modestly functional level. Computers are designed to increase your productivity, folks, not waste your time. Android devices are, let's just say, let's just move on. Anyway, facebook.com/smAsho, another spot to find some horrific software. But we do interact there a bit for business purposes. Follow us on Instagram if you like. Over 2,000 posts there, including things like pro driving tips and side view sunrises and Three Stooges clips. It's good times. Also, we're on Twitter, twitter.com/smAsho, gab.com/smAsho. That's what yesterday's thumbnail was supposed to look like until Google lost more of our data on the YouTube studio. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, YouTube. Thanks, Google. Thanks, Google, for buying YouTube. Pardon the sarcasm, viewers. Also, follow us on Minds, the 100% open source social media that will not censor you. It will not scam, fraud, or hack you. Help us get to 500,000 views. We've only got 703 subscribers there. It's a modest social media platform, but it is the future of social media, lacking censorship. So please press like and please subscribe to our channel. And click the notification bell. Check out today's community post, which features an RT video exposing the lies, fraud, and scams of Google, who is, by the way, getting sued for electioneering by Tulsi Gabbard. Earthquake rundown, a 4.2 at Tajikistan, a 5.1 at Greece. Let's check the location of that one and hope it didn't do too much damage, as there are tons of old buildings, and it's out in the Mediterranean. Everybody's probably pretty unharmed by that. So the earthquake risk is up, folks. There's a coronal hole wind stream about to hit and a coronal hole magnetic connection, so we can see some extreme magnetic perturbations, and we will try to stay on top of it as well as we are able. Here's a 4.1 at Colombia. That one is at depth, right in the north-central region of South America there. Here's a deep quake at Fiji, 513 kilometers, 4.4 magnitude, a 4.7 at Burma. You might call it Burma, but it'll always be Myanmar to Jay Peterman. Here's a 4.5 at Malaysia. Man, that one's at extreme depth, 664 kilometers. Shout out to Malaysia. If you're able to see our video there, we'll be very surprised. Please leave a comment. 4.6 at Japan. Watch out for a larger quake at the surface. By the way, Malaysia. Largest quake in a long time in the Aleutians. That one's at Alaska. Out in the Aleutian Island chain. Just out in a rift in the ocean there, actually. I doubt anybody was there to see that one, as it was underwater. So it looks like an uptick in small quakes here. Still waiting for the big one as we see this continued earthquake 7 magnitude drought. And I lost my place. 4.6 at Tonga, 4.9 Philippines, 4.0 at Philippines. Do I have my map in the wrong place? I usually have it like here, right? 5.0 in New Zealand. Right on the South Island. Oh, my bad. Not on the South Island. Southwest of the South Island. Haven't seen a quake there for quite a while. We also see a 5.0 at India. And let's move on to pressure maps. We'll let this play for a moment, as you can look at your warning zones and see if there's any odd east to west moving low pressure zones. As we know, low pressures are a risk factor for earthquakes. And we are totally on the wrong day here. Let's bring it back to Sunday. Here's the current situation. Large anticyclone south of Alaska. Fairly powerful low pressure system there in central Canada, as well as right off the coast of England. I'll just keep pressing the button until it actually works. Still haven't gotten the new mouse or the new microphone, as our funding continues to evaporate. We've gone into single-digit numbers of patrons. So again, please subscribe to the Patreon channel, as there's going to be a lot of content coming out that you will not otherwise see. Anyway, there's where things will be early morning Tuesday UT, and let's move on. What the heck was that? All right. Volcano rundown. What do we have here? Thermal signals on Stromboli showing active vents and lava overflows. So Stromboli back on the list. Level of activity remains very high. Also on the list is Karimsky exploding. 14,000 foot ash plume there. Don't fly your recreational aircraft over that. Abiko remains on the list. Eruption early this morning, UT, producing a 10,000 foot ash plume. Mount Aso exploding, 8,000 foot plume there. Uluwan, very scary there, 45,000 foot ash plume. Sanjiang Api, 8,000 foot ash plume there. Tukono, Mount Awu, a new inhabitant on the list here, Mount Awu. What a great name. Explosive activity, 6,000 foot ash plume. Popocatépetl, new volcanic ash emissions, and Sabancaya still producing a 25,000 foot ash plume. Please don't Fosbury flop or pole vault over Sabancaya. Here are the jet streams. Here's a U.S. situation as the weak anticyclone continues over the southwest, pulling cold air down into the central U.S. Here's a southern jet, which has giant folds in it. And has some extremely meridional flow, traveling in a north-south direction, making a 180-degree turn right here near Antarctica. Here's the overall view of the northern jet stream, which is hardly able to be described as a jet stream, as convective forces are pretty much controlling the show there instead of stable, predictable, high-altitude winds. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar. We just got hit with a severe thunderstorm. No big deal. Here's a U.S. water vapor map. Let that play for a minute for all you U.S. viewers. As that anticyclone continues, it's now centered in the same place it was yesterday, right over the Oklahoma Panhandle. And that situation is just going to continue for an extended period of time. If you're not familiar with anticyclones, if you see clockwise rotational masses in the northern hemisphere or in the southern hemisphere counterclockwise ones, that's an anticyclone. And welcome to the That's an Ass and That is a Hole in the Ground portion of the video, where we don't use vulgarity and we keep everything kid-friendly. We've put links to this article in the description below the video. The single best thing in every Lehigh Valley town. Now, I'm in the Lehigh Valley, and I can't vouch for all these places, although Lockridge Furnace in Albertus is awesome. And a lot of these spots are great, such as the Allentown Fair, Music Fest. Steel Stacks, great place to see a concert. A great place to see a concert and not to climb up on the stacks and threaten suicide for 21 hours like a guy did a couple weeks ago. Also, there's lots of historic sites. Keep in mind, there were people living right near where I am in I believe in the 1400s already, but certainly in the 1500s. There are some very old things. European things, that is. Jacobsburg Park is a great place to mountain bike. And I know there is another one on the list that I want to comment on. Oh yeah, Inside Scoop in Coopersburg. I've been there. It's legit. They cater to cyclists, as cyclists eat a lot of ice cream. So come visit the Lehigh Valley, do a bike ride. It's one of the biggest cycling meccas in the world. Also learn about the legend of Tamber Yokel. Now, Tamber Yokel was a guy. Tamber Yokel was a guy who was a Revolutionary War hero. Now, he didn't want to go in the army, but he got drafted. So the word on the street is that he made a deal with the devil to avoid injury, and indeed, he returned from the Revolutionary War unscathed. Now, when he got back, he went out to the local bar, and he started talking tough about how the devil can't take him in a fist fight. And then he went out back and started doing some kind of weird ritual right near what is now a graveyard at the West Jerusalem Church, according to this article, and was torn to pieces, according to the town records. What do you think happened to Tamber Yokel? There's a poem about it, which is linked below the video. Did the devil tear him apart? Or was it a Nittany lion? You be the judge. Another article linked in the description is a great one, talking about mostly stuff that we agree except the climate change crap thrown in at the end. How to destroy the global economy. Practically right in everything. It says, it's excerpts from a book from the perspective of a fictional character known as T.J. Wormwood, Chief Demonic Officer, Finance Lord, Third Ring of the Third Seventh Circle, to be invited to the audience at Davos. Anyway, read the article if you understand economics. You'll be amused. Here's another article about why tariffs are stupid, since tariffs are stupid, and their attacks, even if they're used as a macroeconomic bargaining chip, that does not change the fact that they're going to raise your prices and they're going to lower the quality of your products through protectionism. Also, they'll reduce the availability of products and cause inflation. So at the same time of an economic downturn globally, we don't really need to have tariffs. Tariffs are extremely damaging to mainly consumers, the same people that the tariffs are purported to help. Sometimes helping people is the worst thing you can do. Links to this article also. We do it anyway, at massive personal expense, despite the fact that Google is a scam and not a verb. So if you see ads on our channel, and you think we're paid to make these videos, we make nothing on these videos. 100% of zero will always be zero. This one just in, about an hour and a half ago. Multiple people shot in Dayton, Ohio. Up to 12 people were shot, as many as 7 are dead, in the second mass shooting in less than 24 hours. First one was conducted in a gun-free zone known as Walmart. Anyway, links to this Washington Examiner article talking about how the media has finally gotten their white supremacist, gun-toting, far-right, whatever you want to call it, mass shooter, racist. It's legit. So look for this one to be in the news for the next 2 years. Hopefully you saw our video about it before you saw CNN talking about it. As if any of the folks that are watching this video watch CNN in the first place. In his manifesto, he states he generally supports the Christchurch shooter and his idiotic manifesto. Drove 670 miles to El Paso to go to a predominantly Hispanic city to conduct his idiotic shooting spree, which began with people trying to fundraise selling water out in the front parking lot. Well, thanks for tuning into the smAsho stream. We're going to show you a couple bonus views here. How about 171 angstroms, my personal favorite. By the way, thanks everybody for tuning in and leaving comments. We appreciate that. Please visit the links below the video. Help support the channel. Open up your dusty wallet and send $1 per month to us via Patreon. And share our videos on social media, as we seem to be having some trouble getting some traction. Although we did experience a David Dubine bump this past week, gained about 25 or 30 subscribers, and for that, we thank you. So we are out of here. Remember, folks, stare at the sun and drink